In this video, you'll learn how to use Flutter's basic widgets and how to navigate between pages. And towards the end of this video, I've also got a pro tip for you guys on how you can drastically improve your Flutter widget knowledge so you know exactly what widget to use in any situation. Hi guys, welcome to Codeword, where you'll learn to code apps, websites, backends, and games. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and everything mentioned in this video will be linked in the description. So let's dive right into it. As you learned in the last video, Flutter layouts are built using widgets. Flutter provides a lot of standard widgets you can use to build your layouts. The first widget you have to understand is the Placeholder widget. So you can go ahead and clear out the example app that we left last time, and you can clear out the home page and the home page state by just selecting this all and removing it. And you can also remove the comment right here, like this. And then you can remove the home page part right here, and let's start by typing placeholder. Placeholder, like this. And you can immediately see the blue lines that start appearing here, which is Visual Studio Code telling you that you can add a const keyword here. Const keywords allow the Dart compiler to already know the types at runtime, and this will prevent Flutter from rebuilding your layouts the whole time whenever you're running your app. So it will slightly improve your performance. Luckily, Visual Studio Code will tell you whenever you need to place this or remove this. So you can just go ahead and follow that, like I will do here. So placeholders can be used to fill up space in your app to kind of see how certain layouts will work. So for example, when you want to add an image somewhere but you don't have that image yet, you could just add a placeholder to fill up that space for you. But it's also very useful for us right now to understand how other Flutter widgets work. So if you type placeholder like this with the constant keywords and press save, Flutter will rebuild your app, and you can see the placeholder appearing right away. The placeholder is the square here with the X in it. That's how a placeholder looks in Flutter. You can change its color too by saying color like this, and then color.blue, for example, and save it, and then it will be a blue placeholder. All right. So next off, we're going to make our homepage file. So here in the lib folder, in a new Dart file, you can say like this, new file, and then let's call it home_page.dart, like this. And maybe even create a folder for it to keep everything nice and tidy. Pages, like this. Drag that in there, like this. All right. So let's import the material library first, because that's what you're going to need to do anything in Flutter. Here, just import this, and now terms like widgets and stateless widgets and stateful widgets will be defined. So you can now type class. Let's call this home page. Let's extend it from a stateless widget, like this. And make a constructor, homepage. Let's say key, super key. This is something that Flutter always wants you to do. And now here you can immediately see that it starts complaining that you can add const to it. So you could just add const like this. And let's create the build method. So you can say override build, like this. And so in here we can say return placeholder for now. And then in this placeholder, let's give it a red color so we know that we changed it to the new page. Let's create colors.red, like this. And it's going to tell us we can make it const. And then let's go back to our main file. And here. And in here we can go ahead and import the new page that we created. So let's say import and then pages/homepage.dart, like this. And then instead of having this placeholder, the blue one that we created right here, we can now say homepage, like this. Save it. And you can see right here that the lines became red because that's what our homepage defined. So perfect. You created a new widget, the homepage widget, and that's now showing on screen. So next off, we have the Scaffold widget. Most pages in Flutter, so if you create a new page, most of the time you're gonna start off with the Scaffold widget. So let's say Scaffold like this. And a scaffold is basically a container for your material layouts. So it's going to help you create material layouts, which is the basic Flutter theme. So let's go and also add an app bar to this. So the scaffold also has a function here to create an app bar. So let's say app bar, and create one like this. And now if you save it, it's going to have an empty page with an app bar right here. And you can also give your app bar a title like this. Say title, text, and in here you can say my location app. And now right in the top here, you're gonna have your title for your app. So and below here, we can also start giving it a body, which is the white space here. And then in here, our next element is going to come into play, which is going to be the container. A container is a widget you can use to give other layouts a padding or color, and you can make sure that there's some spacing between it. So let's say this container, let's give it a color so we can see it more easy. So let's give it a gray color, for example, colors.gray, like this. And now in here, you can see that the background color turned gray. Perfect. Okay, so you can also create a padding. So this will inset your layout by a little. So let's create a padding right here. And then say edge insets.all, which means all the edges, so left, right, top, and bottom, will all have a bit of padding. So let's say 10 for now. But as you can see, nothing will show up because there's nothing in the container itself. So in order to visualize that, we can give it another container as a child. So let's say container, like this, and also give that a color. So let's give it a white color to make it clear, like this. And now you can see that this white container has been created, and there's a little padding between this one and the container behind it. So to increase that more, you can enhance this number by 10, make it 20, for example, like this. Now you can see it more easy. That's all the const keywords here, which is always a good practice, like this. And a container can also provide a shadow, and it can also provide rounded corners, which is what I like to use containers for. So in order to give the white container rounded corners, you can say decoration, and then give it a box decoration. And so one thing you're going to have to note here is that this color keyword is basically a shortcut for creating a box decoration and then assigning a color to it, colors.white, for example. But since we're creating our own box decoration now, if you were to leave this like this, we'd get an error like this because there's two box decorations right now. Cannot provide both a color and a decoration. So in order to fix that, all you have to do is remove this color declaration and just keep the box decoration one like this. So now let's give it a radius. We can say border radius and border radius dot all, so all the borders, and then radius dot circular, and then let's say 15, for example, like this. And now if we start our app again, like this, it's going to have circular borders like that. Let's make sure that this is a constant, like so. Now let's say that in this container, you'd want to add something like text, for example, and you want to put that in the center of this container. You can use the center keyword like this, and this will, in the center of your container, add any element that you feed it. So let's say we give it a piece of text like this, and we say hello text. Then in the center of this container, it's a little bit small right now, but you can see hello text. And so let's also fix that it's a little too small. So in here, in the scope of text, you can also give it a style. Let's say text style, like this. And then we can give it a color, but we can, in this case, give it a size. So let's give it a font size of, let's say, 30. And then let's also give it a weight, font weight bold, like this. And then make this, let's make the text constant as well. Or in this case, the center, like so. Now you can see that the text has also been increased in size, and we made it bold. And you can give it any way that you want. You can also make it italic using the text style. Just hover it to see all the features, all the functionality that text has in Flutter. And Flutter also has buttons, so we can go ahead and remove the text part, like this, and we can create an elevated button. So an elevated button is basically a basic material button, and it's going to have two arguments, onPressed and child, that it wants you to give it. So we can go ahead and create a function. So let's say void on button pressed, like this, and in here we can say print hello button pressed, like so. And then here on pressed, let's give it the argument on button pressed, and as a child we can give it some text, like so. Say hello button, like this, like comma. And because this is a button, we also have to remove the const keyword here, or else it will complain. And let's add it back here, like so. And now we have a button. And every time we click that button, down here in a debug console, it's going to tell you hello button pressed, like this. All right, so that's how you create buttons and text in Flutter. So now let's say, what if we wanted to have the button and the text at the same time on the screen? Well, in that case, we'd have to make a column. So let's add here, remove the elevated button, like so, and maybe also remove the center, like this. And then we can say column, like so, give it children. So let's give it text, hello text. And notice how instead of child, it's going to be children right now, and that there is going to be created an array where you're going to have to add your elements. Let's create text, hello text, and our button again, elevated button on button pressed, text, hello button. And so right immediately off the bat, when you saved it, it's going to shrink the whole layout. That's because the center element that we just removed automatically expands its layout. So now we're going to have to tell our top container to still expand. And so there are two ways of doing this. In Flutter, when creating widgets, it will never grow bigger than its parent. So there's a little trick we can do for this. So we can give the container a width. So you can say either the width is infinite, so we'll just cap it at the maximum width can be, which is the screen size. Or we can do the shorthand of this, and we can give it a constraint with box constraints dot expand. And basically what this does is exactly the same as giving it an infinite width. So when you control click this expand keyword here, you can go into the Flutter source code. And under the hood here, you can see that it will automatically give it an infinite width as well. So giving it an infinite width yourself or using the box constraint that expand will do exactly the same thing. It just depends on what you think is cleaner. I personally prefer the constraints way to do it, but the width way to do it is also just fine. So now that we've fixed the width again, and we can test our button if everything still works just fine. We can continue to the next element you can use to align your layouts, and that is the row element. So instead of a column, you also have a row, like this. which is basically the opposite of a column, which will give you a horizontal layout like this. So now instead of above each other, you can see a horizontal representation of the list we just made. And to align it, like we had with the column as well, by default, the column is aligned in the center in the top, and the row is by default aligned in the center in the left here. We can align both, and the content of the elements by using the align widget and by using the alignment properties of rows and columns. So let's go back to the column real quick, like this. And in this column, we have main axis alignment. So the main axis alignment is the alignment of the content over its main axis. So for a column, that's going to be from top to bottom, a vertical alignment. So when we say main axis alignment dot end, for example, here, it's going to go all the way to the bottom. And when we say start, it's going to stay exactly as it is because it is the default way to do it. But you can also say space between. Then it's going to divide all the elements equally. You can say space around. You can just play around with this to see what works best for you. But the same goes for the row, which will do it on the horizontal plane. Space around, space between, etc. But what if you wanted to place your row in its container all the way on the top? Well, to do that, because the row is automatically centered, we can give it an align keyword like this. We can say child row like so. We can wrap it. And then in this alignment, align widget, we can say alignment like this, alignment dot, and then we can say top left, top right, center. Let's just center top center like this. So that's how you will that's how you can align your columns and rows as well. So let's go back to our column, so which is useful for making menus and stuff. And let's go ahead and make the alignment start again like this. And let's go over the next widget, which is an image. So in Flutter, you can create images using two methods. You can either use a URL from the internet, or you can use an image from your local drive. So you can go ahead and download an image. I prefer the Lorum Picsum website, which is picsum.photos, will be linked in the description. And in here you can get a random square image, like so. And every time you'll click that URL, it's going to give you a different image. So let's say I wanted to use this image, so you could just go ahead and download it to your app location, like this. And in your app location, you can create a new folder called assets, like so. And in there, you can, if you want, create a new folder called images. And let's just save it in here. Let's call this one house.jpg, like this. Now if we go back to our code, in here in the new assets folder that we created in images is our new house image. In order to get that in our app, we're going to have to tell Flutter that we have an assets folder now. So it will be packed into the application when we build it. And to do that, you're going to have to open your pubspec.yml or the YAML. And here you can already kind of see an example on how to do it. You can include whole folders, which I prefer to do by saying assets, and then in here create the image path, or the path to your assets, which is assets/images in our case. And so now Flutter will include this images folder in our application. And to use this image in our application, we can create an image widget. And instead of how we normally create widget by just calling the constructor, we can use a helper function, and we can use the asset helper function here. So we could just say image.asset and then the path to our image. So assets slash images slash house.jpg, like so. And now, and it can't find the image. Let's see. It's because we didn't include the folder. So something to note here is that whenever you include assets and images, and you want to include a whole folder, you have to add a trailing slash like this. So right now, if we save it and we rebuild our app, Flutter should be fine. Like that. So now the image is included in our application. But let's say you are requesting data from an API, or you have images on a website. You can just say image.network. And this way, Flutter will load your image from a website URL. So instead of downloading the image, we're going to get a new image here. Let's get this beach landscape and just copy the URL of that image. And then go back into Flutter and then copy it here. And so instead of having the assets path, you just paste the URL in here and a comma. And then when you save it, it's going to run the app and download the image from that URL. That works pretty well. But in our case, there is no spacing between all the items in the column. So let's say you wanted to create some spacing because you think, well, this is a little bit weird to have everything so close to each other. What I like to do is you can use a SizedBox. So a SizedBox is essentially an empty widget that takes up space. So in this case, you can just give it a height. Let's say we can give it a height of 10, like this. Now you can see it created a little space. If you want more space, you can just increase this number. And a SizedBox is usually also a constant, like text. Like this. All right. So now let's say that you are making a pretty neat, awesome menu, and your app is usually meant for people with bigger phones. So what's going to happen after a while, if you add a bunch of images or a bunch of elements to your screen, you're going to run out of space on smaller devices like this. And in Flutter, it's going to show you that your content on screen is too big by showing this yellow black striped pattern, and it's going to tell you bottom overflow by a certain amount of pixels in the small text right here. And in order to solve that issue, if you have layouts that you know for certain are going to overflow certain devices, you can wrap your content in a scroll view. So in this case, we can wrap our column or like this in a single child scroll view, like so. And then in here, a child, a wrap column here, letter parenthesis, save it. And now you can immediately see that the warning has been removed. And in your app, you can now scroll your layout. That's pretty awesome, right? All right. So now let's say you wanted to create another page, let's say an about page to introduce your company, who made the app, and give some credits to the developers. Then you'd have to use some navigation. So if you've used apps before, you know that you can create, access certain settings, buttons, or menu items, and then a new page will enter. And on the top here, you'd have a little back button to go to your previous page. Flutter can do this too, and to do this, you're gonna have to create a new file. Let's call this one about page, like so, .dart. Let's create a very simple widget here. So let's say import material.dart, like so. Let's create our app or our page class about page extends from stateless widget, like so. Let's create our about page. So let's say about page, and then key, super, key, like so. Initialize our widget. constant. And then let's create our build method. So let's say override build, like so. And then in here, let's create a very basic layout with an app bar. So we can return scaffold to create a new page. Most pages are made with scaffold. Let's say app bar. And give it a title again. And then give it about page, like so. And then don't forget the semicolon here. Make it constant. And then maybe also give it a very simple body. So let's say body. Use the center class to keep it nice and centered. Give it a child with some text. Say about this app, like so. Very simple. And in order to navigate to this about page, let's go to our home page and create a button that will navigate to that page. So let's remove a few of these images, create some space. Let's create an elevated button, like so. Now let's make a new function here for a new button. Let's say on about pressed, like so. We can say it's here on about pressed. Give it some text, like so. About app, for example. So now we have our new button here, but right now it will do nothing. And to navigate through to a new page, what we're going to have to do is accept an argument here. Let's say build context, like this. You're going to have to accept the context. And then in here, instead of just passing the function like this, we're going to have to supply it using an anonymous function, like so, because we want to pass our own argument. And the argument we're going to want to pass is the context that we get here in the build function. So here we get a context. And let's pass it in here when we press that button, because that's where we're going to need to navigate. And so in here, I'm going to make this constant. So in here, you can use the navigator class to navigate to your about page. So let's first create the navigator, like this, and then off context. This is what we need the context for. And so in Flutter, you can navigate using two methods, either by making routes like in a website, or simply by passing the widget to Flutter's navigator. So by the simplest way, which I prefer, is by simply pushing the new widget to the stack by simply creating it right here in line. So you can use the push keyword. Pushing a route will basically create the new widget page and animate it over the current page. So let's say and you gotta give it a material route, material page route, like this. It has a builder in here. So let's say context, like so, and let's give it the about page. So first we're gonna have to include our new page. So let's say import about page.dart, like so. And then in here, our about page is going to be available, like this. Like constant, like so. And properly close it like this. Now let's make sure that we add some commas here, like this. And now whenever we press our about app button, it's going to navigate it through our new layout, like this. And in our about page, you can see that a back button has appeared, which is what the scaffold app bar automatically adds for you, like so. Now let's say you don't want to use the way I'm currently using to navigate through apps and you prefer using routes like websites. You can define that in your main app here. It's we have the material widget, and in here we can define all our routes. So let's say like this, we can give it routes like so, and then let's make our about route. So you can say about like this, and you can make a builder. So let's say context, and in here you can also create your about page like this. This is also going to work just fine. And then in order to route to this, you're going to have to go to your navigator here, and instead of pushing the material route like this, you can say push named, and then you can just type the name of your route. So let's say /about like this, and then we can save it again, and then we can click it, and it's going to work just fine. So now let's say you're on the about page, and you want to have a back button that's not the one from the app bar, and you want to kind of recreate what the back button here does, which is return back to your previous location. The navigator also has a method for that. So let's, instead of having our text here, let's have a back button. So let's create an elevated button here on pressed with a child text back like so. Let's create a function for that. Make sure to also accept the build context again as an argument. Let's say void on back pressed build context like so. And then we can get our navigator again. Dot off context. And instead of push, we're going to say pop like so. And you don't have to specify any arguments there. You just have to say pop, and it's going to go to the previous page. It's going to do this is basically the exact same implementation as this back button has right here. And so now we can say on back pressed, give our context, and make sure that the constant here is removed, and add it back here. Add a trailing comma. Now our back button is right here, and whenever we click this, it's going to go back to our main home page, like so. And that's how you navigate in Flutter. So at the beginning of this video, I mentioned I've also got a pro tip for you guys on how you can drastically improve your Flutter widget knowledge, so you know exactly what widget you need to use in any situation. So to improve on your widget skills that you learned in this video, you can go ahead and navigate to Flutter's YouTube channel, and in there they have a playlist where every week they upload a new video explaining one of their widgets. I found it very useful to kind of binge watch all these videos because after you watched most of these videos, you have a very great toolkit and understanding on how to build basically any layout you can imagine in Flutter. So for example, one of these videos here about batches, it's usually 1.5 2-minute videos where they're gonna show you an example of the widget, what it does, and some example code on how to use it in your app. But by simply watching all these videos, you're gonna get a great understanding of all the widgets that Flutter has. And yes, it might take a little bit of time, and you don't have to watch it in one go, but I strongly recommend you guys watching this video. Or this playlist. I will definitely link this in the description of this video below, so you can go out and check it out. And besides watching all these videos, I also really recommend you guys going to the Flutter Widget Catalog on their documentation website. This is where they have a categorized view of most of their widgets in the Flutter system, with some examples and some interactive examples that you can use on their website. So the category that I really recommend checking out is the layout category right here. So in here they have most of their layout widgets. So let's say aspect ratio, some baseline widgets, the center widget, which we used in this video, the align widget that we used in this video, and a lot of other interesting layout widgets that will help you basically create any layout you could even imagine. So I really recommend checking this out. They also have the basic layouts that I discussed in this video. So the app bar, the column, the container, the button. So I really recommend you guys checking this out together with the videos. All these examples have working code, and you can just run it, and then here you can test out the examples. So I just really recommend you guys checking out these resources. I will link both in the description below, so you can continue checking them out after this video. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. If this video was helpful for you, make sure to hit that like button, and if you have any remarks or questions, leave them in the comments below. Also make sure to subscribe so you get notified for future videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.